I'd like to welcome you all. Would you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for coming out tonight on a rainy night. The first item on our agenda is going to be a report of the first quarter for our lodging tax report, and that's going to be for the Historical Society by Kristen. That way I won't mess up her last name. Fabre.
City Commissioners, as always, thank you for your support for the Mason County Historical Society. The first quarter of this year has been full of exciting new developments, including the birth of my daughter, Camila. What an incredible year so far. Now that I've returned from maternity leave, I'm excited to be back in action at the museum as we forge forward in our 2017 programs. In my absence, staff, volunteers, and board members did an excellent job of staying on top of our museum projects and operations. Jan Parker did a great job of taking over the newsletter to make sure all of our members received their monthly publication on time. We continued our annual fundraiser and have currently raised over $10,400 towards our goal of $15,000. We will be continuing our fundraiser through this month and into the beginning of May. Our volunteers also continue to work on our digital inventory, and we currently only have 3 years left to complete. After the completion of the inventory, we will be trying to secure a grant to upload the information into Past Perfect museum software, which will make museum accessioning, deaccessioning, and item tracking much easier. In even better news, our application to the American Alliance of Museums Museum Assessment Program was approved, and we have begun the year-long process. An assessor who worked with the Washington State Historical Society will be visiting our museum this summer and making recommendations on best practices and priorities for our collection. We look forward to the visit and hope to improve the future stewardship of the items that we have in our collection. In February, we had a slideshow program on the North Cascades with Jean Springer at the museum. She does a presentation annually. Her presentations are always very informative and entertaining, and we had several in attendance. On March 26th, at 2 p.m., Joel Hawthorne, author of Simpson Railroad, A Recent History, gave a presentation at the museum to talk about the history of Simpson Railroad. His focus is on the 5 years that followed the 2010 reopening of the track into Shelton after a bridge over Goldsboro Creek had been washed out by a flood. The event was very well attended with about 60 present to hear Joel speak. Earlier this month, we hosted a showing of The Search for the Antlers Hotel as a documentary by Dan Warder of DCS Films. The film follows Dan's crew of divers search for the Antlers Hotel under Lake Cushman. The hotel was built in 1898 and shut down in the 1920s, and it was covered with water with the opening of the dam in 1925. The fundraiser was a big success, and both theaters at Shelton Cinemas sold out. We're having another showing of the film on April 29th, and tickets are currently on sale. Looking forward, Mike Fredson will be giving his annual downtown historical walk on April 30th. We'll also have a booth at Matlock Old Timers Festival coming up on May 6th and 7th. In June, we'll have Paul and Babe and the Friends of the Museum classic cars in the Forest Festival parade, as well as our display of Forest Festival items and Queen portraits on display at the museum. We're also in the process of getting ready for our annual Downtown Car Show on June 25th. This is our largest fundraiser of the year, and we hope to have a great turnout this year. Many businesses downtown have agreed to stay open for this event. Museum staff and volunteers continue to aid museum visitors with information on our exhibits, assistance with genealogical research, writing historical articles for the Mason County Journal, and putting together our monthly newsletter and rotating exhibits. In the last quarter, we received 562 visitors, with 86 from out of town, 16 from out of state, and 1 from out of country. We've also received 323 visitors to our antlers. hotel fundraiser so far. Thank you.
All right,
Very-
you stay there for just a second. Any questions or comments? to
No.
Kristen?
You stay so busy. I'm so impressed by all, and with a new baby. That's a big job. We all know that. And I just want to say kudos for the showing of the Antlers movie. It was fascinating. People loved it. And so I'm glad you're having another showing, and I hope that the response is as good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really interesting. Dan Warder contacted us probably about a year and a half ago, researching the film, and we had an event last year in Hoodsport, sort of a preview of some of their dives, so it was really neat to get to see the end result of that. It's a really interesting documentary. Yeah, I did a good job with that, so.
Good. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
Very good report, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on our agenda is we're going to have a proclamation, and it's going to be read by our Commissioner Tracy Moore.
Okay, I will be reading an Earth Day proclamation, and I just want to say I'm sure everyone has heard about the event coming up this Saturday. I've been really pleased to help out in a small way and be a cheerleader, and so I'm very excited to read this proclamation. Whereas the city of Shelton is a gateway to the magnificent Olympic Peninsula and the Olympic National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the Daniel J. Evans Wilderness Area. Whereas the city of Shelton has historically relied upon, indeed was founded upon, the resources from the waters of Puget Sound and from the surrounding forests. These resources tended for centuries by the native peoples of our region. Whereas the people of our community, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, or income, have a right to enjoy these resources and to be guaranteed that they are managed in a sustainable way. Whereas we have institutions within the community that are working diligently and daily to achieve a green economy and to promote sustainable policies and management of resources. Whereas we wish to broaden our commitment and encourage all of our businesses, institutions, and volunteer organizations to educate, broaden, and celebrate our commitment to the health of our community and our world. Whereas we wish to honor the work STEAM in our community, the acknowledgement of science, technology, engineering, art, and math as critical disciplines in creating a sustainable, healthy world. Whereas these disciplines will be publicly acclaimed by Shelton's March for Science on April 22nd. And furthermore, let it be known that the City of Shelton, Washington hereby encourages its residents, businesses, and institutions to use Earth Day, April 22nd, 2017, to commit to building a sustainable green economy and to join with many children and community leaders in a March for Science on that day. And furthermore, that the City of Shelton itself commits to building a sustainable future for its citizens. And I have a certificate for you, Karen, and I would love it if you could say a few words at the podium.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, commissioners and mayor. Thank you. I'd like to invite everyone to participate with us next Saturday at the March for Science. The march is going to begin at Loop Field at noon and march around downtown and notice several items of note around town, some big trees that we have. We're marching past the Tolly steam engine, and we'll have a learning experience there for the marchers. And then we're going to the Transit Center for a program starting at 2 o'clock, a video program. Dr. Gushy is going to show us photographs, videos of his expedition to Antarctica. And Andy Farrington is going to talk about skydiving and wingsuit flying. And then several schools and agencies and businesses around town are going to have tables, information tables there for students and parents to talk to working scientists and retired scientists, to ask questions about how these people got their training, how they enjoyed their jobs, and where they might have worked. We have a lot of Rayonier graduates still around town, and other people who are still working in science and the allied jobs. So we're going to be there until about 5. So I would encourage anyone interested to march for science. And if you're not inclined to march, come to the program at 2 o'clock. I think we'll have a good exchange of information and show our students the pathway to some very satisfying careers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Anybody questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is our weekly commission reports, and we'll start with Commissioner Moore.
Okay, I have a fairly busy week. Tomorrow morning, I will be attending the League of Women Voters monthly meeting. The topic tomorrow is going to be opioids in Mason County and what we're doing to combat this epidemic. I also have a Mason Transit Authority board meeting, and then in the evening, I have another opioid education meeting, transitioning from opioids to buprenorphine. So that will be tomorrow. On Thursday, I have a Moving Mason Forward meeting, and I'm going to attend a something sponsored by the Olympia City Council, Art Needs Space, about incorporating more art into our public right-of-ways and into our city. And then Friday night, there is Girls' Night Out. I will be attending that. On Saturday, I will be attending the Science March. I'll also be welcoming the children's cleanup over at Neyland Park with Shelton to the top. I also would like to mention that as part of the Science Day, Green Diamond has donated a number of seedlings that we will be handing out, which will tide us over until next week when we celebrate Arbor Day. So that's it for this week.
Thank you. Commissioner McDowell?
Tuesday, I have my CareNet board meeting. Wednesday, I will get to be participating in the reality fair at the high school. And
Wednesday?
Wednesday morning at 8.
Oh, yeah.
And that is, they have a group of pardon? Oh,
Reality Fair has?
reality fair? I guess I won't go there. Okay.
We don't usually do this, but because it interests me, I'm going to get into the conversation and ask. So it's not did they just postpone it, or did?
It said it's been canceled due to lack of availability of students to participate.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate, because I did last year and I really liked it, and I was looking forward to doing it. So, sorry to interrupt your.
I don't know how many know what the reality fair is, but anyway, it's a group of kids that they put in the library, and they have different stations. They have adults manning these stations, and it's a reality check for kids to realize that they may have to go to college and work for a living, and that's just it. And how much you can have, a few of them caught on quickly, but most of them were pretty blown away last year with the reality that they were going to have to work at a paying job if they wanted a house and a car and whatever. So anyway, it's a really good, it's a good thing. So I won't be there, I guess. I will be attending Wednesday night. I'll be attending the Small City Tour hosted by Tenino, and that is put on by the AWC, Association for Washington Cities, and it's just mayors and council people from the small cities in Washington get together and they share what's going on in their city and future things. So that's pretty interesting. Andy will be going with me, so that'll be fun. Thursday, my briefing with Ryan, and then 6 o'clock Thursday evening, Thursday I'll be at the chamber lunch at the PUD, and Thursday night at 6, I'll be representing the city on the discussion of the future substations that the PUD is starting to want to build and future funding for those, so that should be interesting. And it's open to the public, so you all come. And Sunday, I'll be going to a Relay for Life fundraiser. A storyteller will be the host of the program, so it should be interesting. That's my week.
Thank you very much. And this week, Tuesday, tomorrow, I will be having a meeting with the Chamber. Wednesday, I will be attending my annual, or not annual, but monthly criminal justice meeting. And to explain a little bit more about that, we are in pretty in-depth conversations about the strong need that the community needs to increase its jail space. And so that conversation is getting, as you read in the paper, I think last week, we have to have some answers for additional jail space. So that's really what we talk a lot about during that. Thursday, I got about 4 things. A couple of them Commissioner McDowell talked about. And one is obviously our weekly briefing, but then I have the chamber lunch, and then I have a ribbon cutting, and then I was planning to attend that PUD workshop also in the evening. And so that completes our weekly commission reports. And next is an opportunity from the public to have general public comment. And so, do we have anybody signed in?
We do not.
Okay.
Where's the ribbon cutting, Gary?
The ribbon cutting will be, I'm not exactly sure. I was told
Yes.
this morning where it was.
Oh, okay.
But-
Is it within the city limits?
I'm
business
not
here?
positive
Okay,
about
I'll
that.
check with Heidi.
I just write ribbon cuttings down because I do 50 a year or so.
Okay,
so.
I'll ask Heidi.
Okay?
Thank you.
And so we have no general public comment people at this time, but we do have a big agenda tonight. So we're going to dig into this, and I have, hopefully I will be able to run in and out of it professionally. So if we're ready for this, at this moment I want to recess out of our regular meeting and open a public hearing on an ordinance number 1896-0417, and that is concerning an alley vacation. At this time, we're going to have our Public Works Director, Craig Gregory, present this ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We have been working through this alley vacation for better than a month now. Back on May 20th, we passed Resolution 1098-0317, setting a public hearing for today. We posted that public hearing notice on March 21st at multiple locations, the Civic Center, Shelton Post Office, and Mason County Courthouse, also in the Mason County Journal, for the vacation of the alley between 7th Street and 8th Street and Harvard and Grant.
Okay? And I know we've talked about this 3 or 4 times, and it's something we've already, I believe, agreed to in theory. And what we're going to do at this time is ask you any questions that we might have, or any comments. And I've asked all of my questions and all of my comments, so do we have any more concerning this?
No.
Okay, so at this point, what we want to do is make sure that the public has an opportunity to respond if they want to about this subject. And so, it's an action item, so we need any public testimony. If there's anyone here who wants to talk about this, this would be the opportunity. Is anybody signed up for that activity?
There was no one signed up, and I have the comment sheet, the testimony sheet up on the podium.
Right,
So
that's right, that's what we are doing,
if
right.
anyone-
So does anybody want to talk about this alley vacation? I don't see anybody at this time. So what we're going to do is close this public hearing, return to our regular meeting. And at this point, what I would say is, do we concur to have a first reading
Yes.
on this?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. May we please have the first reading of this ordinance?
Ordinance number 1896-0417, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, vacating an alley.
The commission concurs to place this on the action agenda for April 24th, 2017. And at this time, I want to recess out of our regular meeting and open a public hearing regarding ordinance number 1898-0417 concerning the annexation of Eagle Point and Tidelands. And so, at this point, we are going to welcome our senior planner, Jason Does, and he will present this ordinance to us.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Hopefully I didn't confuse things with you, but I have a single staff report before you in your packet with two ordinances.
Point of clarification, you did confuse me, and I did call Vicki Look, and she says she was going to jump on you and tell you to divide those in the future. But, so
Fair enough.
because with the legal technicalities of recessing in and out of these hearings and two different issues, that is going to be a problem for me chairing this meeting at this moment. Is there a way you can separate this to where we are talking about the first one, because a second one is a separate issue?
Certainly.
Okay, can you do that for us tonight?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Certainly, not a
Thank you very
problem.
much.
And I apologize. So I came up with a graphic that I'm hoping Chuck can put up on the screen for the folks at home. Back in between 2009 and 2012, to give you a little bit of background, the city was updating its Shoreline Master Program. And we had members, several different members of our city sitting on the board, including the Port of Shelton. And at the time, as we were mulling over different regulations for inclusion, we realized a portion of the Port of Shelton Marina is split jurisdiction. And if you look at the photo up on the screen now, that is attached to your staff report as well. Approximately 75 feet of the north dock and roughly 8 to 10 boathouses are in county jurisdiction. The rest, the balance of the marina, is in city jurisdiction. Now, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Nobody on the water can tell what's what when you're out there, and when you're out using the facility, you certainly can't tell when you cross into city limits. But it does complicate matters for permitting. And simple things that should go fairly straightforward, like repairing docks, have kind of turned into quite a laborious process for the port, unfortunately, because of the split jurisdiction. So in 2015, the port applied to the county to expand the city's UGA. And basically, if you look at the wall there, all the parcels with the dots and the X's, which I'll explain as part of the next hearing, those are the newly formed UGA. The county passed an ordinance in late 2015 to expand the city's UGA out into open water, but also include areas on the south side of the bay, known as Eagle Point and its associated tidelands, in the Shelton UGA, which then availed the port to be able to come to the city and apply for what's called annexation. What does that mean? Annexation is the act of basically the city expanding its city limits to the areas you see in the map and taking these areas into our corporate limits, welcoming them into the fold, as it were. It's approximately 72 acres of land, primarily open water space, a few tidelands. It also includes the 12 acres the city acquired on the south end of Oakland Bay, which includes Eagle Point and its associated tidelands. So roughly 8 acres of upland land and about 4 acres of tidelands. So we are actually recommending you annex the pieces of property. I have one of the applicants here, Port of Shelton. They're represented by several folks. The city signed on as well earlier this year for our piece of the pie, as it were, for the Eagle Point areas. Department of Natural Resources is the other applicant. They chose not to come this evening. They're on board with the annexation, and have told me they concur 100% with the staff recommendations on this. So I welcome any questions you have.
Well, we've all probably been involved with this conversation for many years, and I was kind of assuming it was a done deal about a year ago. So, but I think it's the right thing to do. It's especially in permitting and any kind of legal policy situations to have one entity be in control of the marina there. And so I feel this is the right thing to do, and it appears everybody else does too, so.
I'm not sure if any members of the port want to say anything, but.
Is this a good thing for the port? Okay, then we are good on that one. Any other questions for Jason at this time?
I would just like to say I'm really happy about the positive, potential positive outcome of this. And I'm happy to have such a good, strong working relationship with the port. And so I look forward to other projects in the future.
At this time, we need be aware that this is an action item. We need public testimony at this point. So if there's anybody from the public who would like to speak, now would be that opportunity. And we have little sheets that you fill out. So if nobody is wanting to do that at this time, I want to close this public hearing and return to our regular meeting and ask if there are any more questions or comments that we want to make about this issue. Seems a good thing to do. Could we please have a first reading of this ordinance?
Ordinance number 1898-0417. An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Shelton, Washington, annexing certain property and tidelands located within Oakland Bay and an area known as Eagle Point into the City of Shelton.
At this point, what I want to do is let it be known the commission concurs with this ordinance and that we want to place this on the action agenda for April 24th, 2017.
I concur.
I concur. And so, at this point, we're going to recess and back out of our regular meeting and open a public hearing regarding ordinance number 1899-0417, amending the Shoreline Master Program. And this is the part 2 of the 1 to 2 part issue we were talking about. So Jason, you have the floor.
All right, thank you again. Not to belabor the issue, but again, one staff report, 2 items. We're still talking about the same approximately 72-acre piece of property. And if I can get that graphic up one more time, now I can tell you what my cryptic symbols on there mean. You'll see on the document there some dots, some basically dark black dots, and some X's. What those denote are what we are proposing for the shoreline environment designations, because we are required, since this area, whether or not we annexed it, areas in our UGA and certainly within city limits, we have to designate shoreline environment designations. So what we're recommending is we carry out the existing designations, which are further west in Oakland Bay, to a bulk of the parcels, all the parcels marked with X. We're proposing they be Aquatic Harbor. The areas around Eagle Point, on the other hand, we are proposing to extend. We designated Eagle Point Conservancy with our Shoreline Master Program, just due to the intact nature of the shoreline. There you've got bluffs. It's primarily native vegetation, an estuarine marsh there, right kind of in the littoral bay on the south end of the tip of the property. And we are recommending to continue the conservancy designation into those tideland lots as well that are owned by the City of Shelton and by DNR. We did run those by DNR staff, and they concur. Due to the resources present, that's probably the best designation. What the ordinance does is actually describe those properties, but then also officially designate them. So it's really that easy. We are certainly recommending approval. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions?
I have no questions.
No.
Neat. Sounds good. Let's, at this time, invite the public testimony in. If anybody has any questions about this, you're welcome at this time. It's an action item. Seeing nobody rushing forward to sign up for public testimony, what we will do is close the public hearing on this and return to our regular meeting. And what I'd like to do is ask if we concur, which it appears we do,
Yes.
for a
Yes.
first reading of this ordinance.
Yep.
Ordinance number 1899-0417, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to land use, amending the City of Shelton Shoreline Master Program.
And the commission concurs to place this on the action agenda for April 24th, 2017.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is a reading of our consent agenda. Are we ready for a reading of the
Yes.
consent agenda?
Yes, yes.
Could we please have that?
Consent agenda. Vouchers numbered 14149 in the amount of $6,368.66. Vouchers numbered 14154 through 14261 in the amount of $279,935.96. Approval of minutes from the business meeting of March 6, 2017, the study session of March 13, 2017, and the business meeting of March 20th, 2017.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Consent agenda passes. We're now moving into the action agenda, and we have a few items on that. The first item is going to be from our financial director, Noah Van Nudek.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. On March 13th was your first touch on the topic of converting the City of Shelton from a GAAP basis to a cash basis system of accounting and reporting. And last Monday, I presented a more detailed explanation of that recommendation. So unless you have any other particular questions for me at this time, staff is requesting a second reading of proposed ordinance number 1897-0417, and further requesting a motion to approve said ordinance to authorize conversion of the City of Shelton from a GAAP basis to a cash basis retroactive to January 1, 2016.
I have no questions. I just have a comment that it appears that 80% of the state cities are under that. Is that what I read in here?
80% of Washington state governmental entities. Only the largest and most complex entities typically are the ones who operate on a GAAP basis. City of Seattle, City of Tacoma, Port of Tacoma, some of those larger entities are the ones. There are larger cities that do operate on a GAAP basis, but most cities that are of our size and smaller, most of them operate on a cash basis. That's very common. It's simpler, it's more efficient, it's less expensive, it provides simple, understandable information.
Okay. Any other questions at this time?
No.
No.
This is also an action item, so if there's anybody from the public that would like to comment, now would be the opportune time. And seeing no one coming forward at this time, what I would like to do is ask for a second reading of this ordinance.
Ordinance number 1897-0417, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing conversion to the cash basis of accounting retroactive to January 1, 2016.
All right. Next is our business agenda items, and it's a couple of items under that. And so at this time, we're talking about a latecomers agreement. I'd like to turn the meeting over to our Public Works Director, Craig Gregory, unless I've missed something.
We're also asking that you make a motion to approve that change.
Okay, so
To adopt.
after we've got the second, it's automatically done, I thought, but we want to now make a motion to accept this ordinance,
To adopt the ordinance.
to adopt the ordinance. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I move that we approve ordinance number 1897-0417 to authorize conversion to a cash basis retroactive to January 1st, 2016.
There's a second?
I second that.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now we are into the business agenda part of our meeting, and Craig Gregory is going to come and present a latecomers agreement to us.
Thank you again, Mayor and Commissioners. The water main extension from Well 3 on Shelton Springs Road near the high school extended out to Washington State Patrol on Highway 102 was installed back in 2013 at a cost of $2.675 million. And that main was paid for by Washington State Patrol, reaching the outer limits of the UGA. And that water main came with a latecomers agreement that has never been finalized and a bill of sale never received by the city of Shelton from Washington State Patrol to accept it. We have been working in intense negotiations for about 6 months with Washington State Patrol trying to get this done. And what this does for us moving forward with this latecomers agreement, it provides a connection to Washington State Patrol and disconnection of their well, which gives us a qualification for the grant forgiveness or the loan forgiveness for Upper Mountain View pressure zone in the amount of $1.5 million. In front of you, in your packets, you had a copy of the latecomers agreement. We did make a few changes that I provided to you, a new latecomers agreement that is highlighted in red. It's in section 2 that we wanted to make sure that for the loan forgiveness, we made sure that getting Washington State Patrol connected, that they would disconnect their well and go through all of the proper steps with Department of Health to get us our qualification for the loan forgiveness. So we added some language in there with consultation through the city attorney. We came up with some language that I think ties them to all of those requirements in a timely fashion, which will be by July 31st of this year. We actually have until June of 2018 for that loan forgiveness of $1.5 million, but we would like to not drag our feet on this one any longer than we already have. We've been working on this for approximately 4 years now, and we would like to get it finalized. So we have given them some concessions to make sure that they did get hooked up in lieu of a couple of the latecomers agreements that we failed to collect on without having that agreement in place.
Yes, I think this is the right move at the right time, and I support this. And any questions or comments for Craig Gregory?
No, thank you for taking this on, recognizing that we had this opportunity and moving forward on it. Thank you.
You're welcome. We have exhausted all, there were 4 wells that met the criteria for the loan forgiveness, and we have exhausted all 4 of those at this point, with Washington State Patrol being the last one. And they have tentatively agreed to this agreement. We got it off to them today and gave them until the end of the week to respond with any changes, but the tentative agreement was this agreement, so unless something changed on their end in the last week or so, we should have approval by the end of the week from Washington State Patrol.
Wonderful. Very
Okay.
good.
Thank you very much. So it appears the commission concurs to place this item on the action agenda for April 24th, 2017. Stay where you are, young man, because you are the second item on this business agenda, and so you want to talk to us about the Railroad Avenue Road Diet expansion.
So, a few years ago, the Downtown Visioning Group, which is a group led by downtown business owners, started the road diet on Railroad Avenue to enhance walkability and the economic development potential of downtown. We implemented a few pieces of that last summer, from 3rd Street to 5th Street on Railroad, that included going down to 1 lane in each direction, and some back-end angled parking on the north side of Railroad, along with some painted curb extensions. We moved parallel parking off of the curb to simulate a sidewalk extension also. And we are looking at expanding on that road diet and moving it from 1st to at least 7th. It may be because of channelization out to 8th Street, and also eliminating some of the pieces of that that don't look like they worked at this point. We were scheduled to implement the second piece of the road diet this spring, which would have been a traffic dot at 4th and Railroad that also didn't look like it was going to function very well. It was basically going to be a free-for-all with a painted dot in the middle of the intersection with no signage at all on that intersection. So we have done a traffic study at 4th and Railroad to assess whether we actually need a traffic signal there. That was done a couple weeks back by a traffic engineer, Rick Perez, who is a seasoned traffic engineer. He's been in the field for about 30 years now. And through the city efforts, we got him information that he then gave us a response back to our questions that we had for him, whether we actually needed the traffic signal or not. So that is the first element of the road diet that we would like to make some changes to. It would be to eliminate the traffic signal at 4th and Railroad. And just to brief you on what he used as criteria, it's straight out of the MUTCD. There are 8 warrants that warrant a traffic signal, and those were the 8-hour vehicular volume, the 4-hour vehicular volume, peak hour, pedestrian volume, school crossings, coordinated signal system, crash explanations, and roadway networking. He did not find in any one of those 8 warrants that any one of them met criteria enough to warrant a signal at that intersection. We have done extensive outreach on this for the changes that we have listed. We have done 4 radio spots, 12 online posts. We have taken 2 staff trips up and down Railroad Avenue and visited business owners on 2 different occasions. We also had an online survey that we got 355 responses to. We have conducted 2 staff meetings, one of the leadership team and one of Public Works staff. 2 press releases. The speed trailer was on location down there in that area for 2 weeks. We had variable message boards in location for 2 weeks, and also the advanced warning signs that are still up out there in that area. So the other elements that we are proposing today are the elimination of the back-end angled parking, elimination of the painted curb extensions, expansion of the painted red non-slip crosswalks to extend from 7th to at least, or from 1st to at least 7th Street, and adding a center turn lane at every intersection. And we did ask the public through that survey and got some very good feedback. The Red, we asked 8 questions with that survey. The red non-slip crosswalks, 72% of the folks that took the survey were either liked that or strongly liked it. The back-end angled parking, 69% disliked or strongly disliked the back-end angled parking. The painted yellow curb extensions were fairly indifferent. It was pretty mixed across the board. The adding pedestrian assistance was 67% liked or strongly liked. The 5-foot buffer between the traveled lane and the parallel parking was indifferent. The return to parallel parking was 68% liked or either strongly liked. And we also proposed lowering the speed limit on Railroad Avenue from 25 to 20. And we got a very negative response from that. People do not want to slow down to 20 miles an hour. That was 70% no on the reduction of the speed limit. So if you have any questions for me, I certainly will answer any of them that I can.
I do.
I don't.
You don't? You?
I am on the committee, so I have met extensively about this, so I would let you go.
Well, what I wanted to do is say at this time, and you know, when you're doing something like this in a city, you're going to have opinions all over the board for a long time. And what I like about this is this started as a community grassroots survey type of a situation, and that we did this experiment with different parking and painting sidewalks and doing different things. And then we did the survey, and the survey I thought was really good. Because I was having a conversation with one business owner the other day, and a couple months ago, I think maybe, or a month ago, and I said, well, look, here, let's just, you and I, let's agree what to do. We'll forget about the 99.9% of the other people, and then you and I will be happy. We'll just do what we want to do. And he looked at me kind of like, well, we can't do that. Well, of course we can't do that. So what I'm going to say is many people have put tons of hours into this, and many people are not going to get their way on what we're doing. We did the survey. The survey pretty much showed you what the majority of people kind of wanted and liked. And I just feel we are as fair as you could possibly be on these questions and on what we're doing. And I think we gave plenty of opportunity. We went through many, many, many discussions. And I am comfortable with moving forward with the recommendations that you're putting here.
One thing that I did fail to mention, Mayor and Commissioners, we did bring back the visioning committee back together last Thursday also, and met with them and got their endorsement on the changes that we have proposed. So that was one thing I failed to mention, is we did get back together with that original group that actually brought the road diet forward in the first place, just to see what they thought, and they were in favor of us moving forward. It was a consensus with them to move forward with the changes and the improvements that we were looking at.
This is something that's taken 2 to 3 years, and it's a revolving or evolving kind of a situation. And I just really feel very comfortable with these recommendations, with what you've come forward with. And you try and make something for everybody that everyone's going to like, but it will never get there. You know, 70% looks like, I read the survey, great job, and I think that these things line right up with what the majority of the people are kind of looking forward to. So that's my 2 cents on that subject.
I think the major questions that I have received from this, and I think that we've addressed this, if my memory serves right, is the difficulty when pulling out to the stop line and the cross streets. The difficulty of seeing around the cars that are parked there. Is it correct that moving the cars back to the curb will alleviate some of that sight distance problem?
It certainly should. Moving them back 3 feet back to the curb should open up some of that sightline triangle. We also, with this proposal, have talked about some parking changes also that I also failed to mention. one of the proposals that we have talked about was getting rid of the yellow boxes that are down on the south side of Railroad. Right now, on each block, we've got a 20-foot parking stall on each end of the block, and then 17.5-foot parking stalls, and then the 8-foot yellow boxes. So what the proposal would be to add at each one of the intersections that you would need to pull out would be a motorcycle parking that would eliminate some of that sight distance issue, and then eliminating the yellow boxes to get the same amount of parking stalls, and they would go from a couple of 20-foot stalls and then the rest of the block at 17.5 feet to 22-foot parallel parking stalls on that south side of the street. The north side would stay the same there at 20 feet at this point. But the standard traffic movement, Commissioner Moore, to answer your question, is to, if you look at all of Shelton and other cities, the standard practice, if you have a stop bar, is to place the stop bar 10 feet back from the not only the crosswalk but also the stop sign. Mm-hmm. So you're supposed to, with those normal movements, pull up to the stop bar, stop, and then inch forward to be able to see traffic, oncoming traffic, and then ease out into traffic. So that is the standard movement. We are not changing that. So we would propose to leave the stop bars right where they're at, and with that sightline issue that you have, you would pull up, stop, ease forward until you could see enough to get out into the traveled lane. And hopefully with narrowing those lanes down to 11 feet and restricting those speeds somewhat, it will make it easier for folks to get out into those traveled lanes. And also pedestrian movements make those easier as well, with slowing that traffic down and moving them back and forth across the roadway.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? So at this point, do we concur that we can place this on the action agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
So at this point, what we're going to do is place it on the action agenda for April 24th, 2017. And so that concludes that. Now, what we have is administration reports, and we have another administration report, I believe, by Nola Arnude.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. On March 13th, I provided you with a report on the city's debt and all of the details of the various debt items that we had. As a result of that presentation, you asked me to follow up on a couple of questions, so I've done that and wanted to provide you with the information I've been able to gather so far. One of the questions had to do with the possibility of refinancing any of the debt, and the other question had to do with utility rates and whether or not we might be able to lower those. So I'll address each one of those questions with, like I said, what information I have so far. I could be getting more information. As far as the debt refinancing, I met with Dave Tregesser, who is our bond underwriter from D.A. Davidson, who's our bond broker, and he was able to help me with a lot of these pieces. Very, very useful, informative meeting that I had with him. When I talked to him about the debt refinancing, some key takeaways that I got from that meeting with him was, first of all, the 2013 UTGO and LTGO bond debts are, they're not callable. In other words, they're not refinanceable. Just a reminder, UTGO and LTGO means UTGO is unlimited tax general obligation debt, which is approved by the voters and paid by the taxpayers through additional taxes. LTGO is limited tax general obligation debt, which means it's approved by the commission and it's paid out of our general operating revenue. Those debts are not refinanceable. There are some water and sewer bonds from 2013, and those are not refinanceable or callable until 2023. So we wouldn't be able to do anything with any of those right away. As far as the USDA loans, we have several USDA loans. The interest rates on those loans are very low. We even have some zero interest rate loans. And they're very low because they're subsidized. They're quite a bit lower than the market interest rates right now. The current interest rates are higher than they were when our debts were incurred. So if we were to try to refinance anything right now, we would not be able to do that likely without having to pay a higher interest rates. Right now, interest rates are sitting really close to 4%, and most of our loans are 2%, 1.5%, maybe 0.5% or 0%. We have a couple of loans that are in the 3 to 3.5% range. But I will continue to monitor that, and I'll try to do some more research and see if I can find out if there are any other possible things we might be able to do with that debt situation to see if we can improve on that. As far as utility rates, some relevant information to consider when we're looking at utility rates. All of our water and sewer revenue bonds are what's called parity bonds, and that just means that the debt has to be paid from a very specific source of revenue. In this case, it has to be paid from water and sewer revenue. We cannot try to find other sources for paying that debt. It has to come from that source. The water and sewer revenue bonds also have something called rate covenants. And a rate covenant means that we have agreed to some kind of a certain rate based on a mathematical formula. And that is an auditable issue with the auditor's office. So when they come in and do our annual audit, they're going to be looking at what are our rates and what are we basing that on. When we look at our bond ratings, that's one of the components of this picture to look at when we're thinking about utility rates. Right now, there are two major bond rating agencies that we deal with, Standard & Poor's and Moody's. And with Standard & Poor's, we have what's called an A+ rating. The equivalent of that with Moody's is an A1 rating. They just use different names for the same level of rating. If you were to put those on a scale that equalizes everything, we're basically at the top of the upper medium range, which means we have plenty of room for improvement, but we also could be a lot worse. So we are in a good place, but we could be in a better place as far as our bond rating. Another component to consider when we're looking at utility rates is our debt service coverage reserve requirements. Most of our debts have some kind of a reserve requirement. Right now, it's about $1.5 million that we have to keep set aside when we're, as long as we have those debts in place. So these are all components of that picture when we're looking at what could we do with utility rates. With that information in mind, then the basic process that I would go through in looking at utility rates is I look at what is the gross revenue that we bring in from water and sewer. And then I have to back out of that in this order, operating costs first. Second, I would back out parity debt, that would be the revenue bond debt. Third, I would back out the junior debt, which would be the Public Works Trust Fund debt. We have a number of those debts. Fourth, I would back out capital expenditures that are necessary in order to maintain the infrastructure of our water and sewer systems. Fifth, I would back out the debt service coverage reserve requirements. I mentioned a minute ago they're just shy of $1.5 million. Once that's done, we can see what's left, and then the next step is to build out a 3 to 5 year forecast looking at what do we anticipate our population to be that will be utilizing our water and sewer services, looking at what are our wage and benefit costs going to be for our personnel that are required to provide those services, and what are the debt expenses going to be, which we have all that information, that's pretty easy to plug in. Looking at what are our capital expenditures going to be for those years. Once I've been able to complete that, then we'll have a pretty good picture of what we have left when that's all said and done. And if there is any room at that point to do anything with adjusting the water and sewer rates. So that's what I have so far on that. I will continue to look at this issue, and at this point I will stop and see if you have any questions.
Well, that's a lot of good news you've given us. My goodness, I mean, I was looking for a ray of hope somewhere in there, and I didn't see a whole lot. But I don't usually give up on things, you know. What I like to do is you're very educated and very good at what you do. I just know I have a heart for the people in the city, and we are in the top tier of water and sewer
Understood.
rates. Way up there. And so I asked the questions, and maybe other commissioners were asking questions at the same time. I just know that I'm going to keep asking questions. I want us to keep looking at any way to alleviate some of that expense to our citizens. And so,
Certainly.
anyway, you've brought forward, I wrote down everything that you said, and maybe there's another approach.
We will certainly keep looking at this. We're always going to be exploring options. We want to keep all the options open.
Absolutely.
You did a great job in finding the answers for us. Thank you very much.
And everything has to be done legal.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
First
So,
rule.
Keep that 1.5 million over there, just letting that just kind of grow and, okay.
Thank you so
Any
much
other
for your
questions?
research. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
And this is good education for all of us concerning all the different debts and what we're doing. So, thank you very much, appreciate that,
Thank you.
Noah. All right, next, it appears, any more final touches?
Not at this time.
At this time? Okay, our next meeting will be April 24th, 2017. This meeting is adjourned.
At 2 p.m.
One more step.